Hello and welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations. It's episode 97, Thursday, December 3rd, 2015. I'm Stephen Seagraves, today joined by the full cast. Seth Miller. Hey, Seth.
Good evening. How are you today?
Pretty good. Faz Mahmood. Hey, Faz.
Hello there. How are you guys doing?
And Rolo Veloso. Hey, Rolo.
Hey, what's up?
And tonight we got some dots we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some dots, lines, and destinations. We've got some good topics. Dots up first. We want to talk a little bit about Denver, I think, in general. Denver Airport, not really the city, but just Denver Airport. The new Westin is now open, I think.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind that the airport is not,
anywhere close. I miss Stapleton.
Didn't they do the thing where they extended the city
yes.
by the width of the interstate to make it count?
Yes, it's like what they did in Houston. They have the city goes up the freeway and then it goes around the airport. So yeah, I miss Stapleton though. But the new airport is the new Westin is open at the airport, and I haven't stayed there yet. Have you guys been through? I figure Foz might have been one. He's a Westin fan, so.
Dude, I haven't been to Denver in years.
I think it's interesting though to have an on-airport hotel. I mean, it's not something you really see much anymore, and it's good, right? I mean, if you're connecting, you get stuck there overnight. They're notorious for snowstorms. You don't have to drive Pena Boulevard 15 miles to the Aloft,
No, I mean, I agree. Like the Detroit Westin is one of my favorite hotels. I mean, it's attached right there, has its own security. It's definitely one of the nicer hotels. But I haven't left the terminal Concourse B in Denver in years at this point.
But I think it speaks to just some growing that's going on at Denver in general. Seth and I were talking before the show about just competition kind of growing to Denver, and that seems to be just a theme there. And so putting the hotel seems to make sense from the perspective of they can grow just the O&D market if they wanted to, and even support some of the connecting traffic.
But is the O&D market really growing? Because, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was probably at its all-time high. I don't know if it's returned to that. We see a lot of transit traffic, but the hotel doesn't really help transit unless there's AirOps.
Well, I mean, it's definitely I know the competition dropped off there for a while. I mean, it was kind of back when Continental dropped out of as a hub. They stopped flying there as a hub, and even United reduced flying there after the merger.
Well, I mean, Continental left in 1995 when they moved to the current airport.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually looking at something, Steven. You said they dropped off. I actually think ASMs are about the same. Maybe
really?
It's from the merger, but I don't remember if it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but United ASMs are basically the same from one of those two. So it's not, the share is down, but the total ASMs isn't.
Okay.
So that's something to consider, right? Frontier came in and put a shit ton of capacity there. Southwest has come in and put a ton of capacity there. So they all sort of share now as opposed to it being dominated. But
and the other thing is what used to be a lot of 733s and 75s are now CRJs.
Yeah, there are a lot of CRJs in Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be much more in the way of mainline than it is express now.
Yeah, but again, the numbers I was looking at were DOT passenger counts. So maybe they're all flying on CRJs, but they're still the same number of people passing through.
But that's connecting traffic. That's not O&D, though.
I'm sure some of it is. You're right. I have no idea what that's.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of connecting traffic in Denver. I mean, United still does a lot of connecting, especially with all those CRJs. Southwest and clearly Frontier are doing connecting as well.
So part of this too is they're building the train out to the airport. Part of the growth is they're building the train all the way out to the airport, which is nice because you can get there from downtown now. And so now you have a hotel option, which is nice. I used to go to Denver for work a lot, and if Westin had been around back then, I would have been very happy because I could have gone there the night before my flight and not had to get up at the crack of dawn to beat traffic, which was a nightmare near downtown. So
is it the A line or something like that?
I don't know what they're calling the new train. Actually, I can look it up. You're the producer, shouldn't you be doing this? It's interesting that Denver's kind of seeing this growth at the airport. That's the new buildings and things like that. That's interesting to me. And so Delta is adding Los Angeles, Denver as a new route. At the same time, Virgin announced that they're going to start flying San Francisco, Denver. And in response to that, United has upped it to 15 times a day they're going to fly San Francisco, Denver now?
Yeah, something like 70 to 100% more seats depending on where you start looking at the schedule.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
And they tried this before, right, on the Newark when Virgin started flying to Newark, right?
Yeah, they went from, they basically went to hourly service when Virgin showed up in Newark. And Virgin came 3 a day and United went to like 10 or 12. It was ridiculous then. And United's actually grown even more because of the PS shift, but
Right.
it hasn't pushed Virgin out. So it's unclear whether it's working or not. That said, Virgin's average revenue per passenger is lower than United's in most cases on those routes. So, United, one of the things United can do is basically keep fares down until Virgin is basically full, and then sell all of the higher yielding traffic to its own customers.
Yeah.
And Virgin either has to stop selling cheap seats early on and risk having them go empty, or keep them cheap and not get the higher yield at the end.
Virgin is all O&D. There's no connecting, whereas United can connect on both sides of those
Also
flights.
Do you think that I haven't read the revenue numbers, but is Virgin doing better than they were? I know we talked about Virgin. We've talked about Virgin a lot. None of us thought Virgin would be around very long, and they've seemed to hang on for some amazing reason.
Well,
but
fuel costs came down, right?
Well, that's true. But have you seen a huge impact in revenue numbers? Like, is Virgin making money? Are they doing better now besides the fuel? Do you know?
I honestly don't. It's an interesting one. I have to go back. They're public now, so checking the 10K or 10Q should be relatively easy. But I haven't really gone back and checked the RASM and CASM numbers.
Because the experiment of Austin Dallas has kind of failed, right? We've seen that.
Dallas was always, I don't want to say a joke, but like a stupid idea.
Well, yeah.
It was basically keeping the gates at Love Field in use so Delta couldn't get them, and they needed somewhere they could fill a few planes and fly relatively inexpensively, and so a short hop down to Austin made sense in that context, but that route was doomed from day one.
Yeah.
So I have information about this train. It's called the University of Colorado A line for some reason. It's going to travel at a top speed of 79 miles an hour and will carry 200 people with wider doors to accommodate travelers with luggage and accessibility needs. 8 stations, including Denver Union Station and the new Denver Airport Station at the South Terminal, which will serve airport travelers and guests of the new Weston Airport Hotel. A line from the University of Colorado for some reason.
Interesting.
And I guess RTD is the Denver, the metro system there, because it's called the RTD University of Colorado A line. So also longest name ever of a rail service.
Well, it looks like they're implementing fare zones too. So the airport will be $9 from downtown.
Taking a picture of the San Francisco playbook.
Yeah.
Marta, what is it called?
Marta?
Bart.
Atlanta?
Marta's Atlanta.
Bart. Sorry, Bart.
Yeah,
Bart.
I'm saying Marta's single fare.
And the airport, side note, the JFK Air train went up to $7 now? That's probably been a while.
No.
Right?
If you buy a single card at the airport that also gets you on the subway, it's $7.75, I think, and it's $5 plus $2.75.
Oh, so it's not just the air train?
The car. If you're talking about the signs you saw at JFK.
Yeah. Like it said, it was $7. It was.
No,
I thought it was $7.
That includes passage on one ride on the subway as well.
Oh, okay. So it's still, it is still. I'm just looking at the MTA. It's still $5 the exit fee.
Yeah, but they sell you now a single card that has the full proper value.
$7.50. Yes, $7.50. Yeah, for the you could just get on the subway.
Yeah, plus the $1 for a new ride or for a new card, because that's obnoxious.
So
I have a mini rant while we're talking about that. You can't refill a AirTrain only card. I buy a 10-trip card, which they sell for $25, so it's half price per passage through the AirTrain, and they charge you an extra $1 to get a new card, but you can't refill that card.
Now, can you move the rides off of those when they expire to another card like you can with a regular Metro card?
I've never had one go anywhere close to expiring. I use that shit all the time.
I have one with a couple of rides left and it expired.
If you'd like to forward it to me, I'll be happy to try. I would imagine the answer is yes.
So, Seth, when I took the AirTrain a few times, so I had my MTA card, and I just paid with that, and it deducted the $5. Right. So you're just doing the 10 rides. You're getting a cheaper version of the ride, basically.
Right. I paid $250 per ride instead of $5.
But there's no way to reload that.
Correct.
That extra.
So I actually paid $260 per ride, but it's still a better deal.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a 10 ride air train only. Oh, okay. I see.
You're having a lot of fun on mass transit websites during this episode, aren't you?
Yes.
So back on topic.
What? Us off topic?
Yeah, no. So do you think Virgin? This probably is not going to have much effect on Virgin with United offering the flights that they offer. This 15 flights a day to Denver out of San Francisco. Do you think it'll impact? I mean, it might impact prices on the short term, but I don't think it'll kick Virgin out.
I agree.
Long. That's.
I mean, how many people need to go from San Francisco to Denver?
I don't know.
Many.
Based on what number? I mean, that's the real thing, right? If United has 15 flights a
I got
day,
a number here.
and Virgin throws 3 flights, like how many people need to do that? Like New York, LA, New York, San Francisco, I kind of get, but San Francisco, Denver?
There's some banking traffic there.
But not
Depending
18
on
flights worth.
I don't know necessarily the source, but someone claiming to be citing DOT data cites 5,000 PDUs, which seems very high. Daily passengers each way. There's no way that can be 5,000 per day.
That's got to include connecting.
Sure, but yeah.
Because for Virgin, connecting doesn't matter. All they can capture is the O&D traffic.
Well, that's the other thing, though, right? They have started Hawaii service, so they can get that connection. But yeah, that's
right.
And LAX.
But who's going to connect in San Francisco to go to LA or San Diego?
Especially when Delta just added.
Yeah.
People who want cheap seats. I mean, and I think Virgin.
No, those people are going to be flying on Spirit or Frontier anyways.
Oh yeah, right. But I think that like Virgin appeals to a certain market. It just
Absolutely.
And so maybe they see themselves as being attractive to that market, and that they can compete with United. The thing I don't get with Virgin is that their connecting traffic is very interesting. Like they fly to San Francisco to Portland and San Francisco to Seattle, and it's a morning flight from Portland down to San Francisco, and that's it. That's the flight of the day. That's it. Until you want to come back at night. And so that's completely O&D to me. I don't see that connecting anywhere. Maybe Dallas, but who would be doing that? It's the same question you guys have about this.
I agree that their network does not appear built for connecting traffic flows for the most part. I think that this new Hawaii service is the closest they've gotten to that.
Unless they're going to go the old Southwest method and just make it run like a bus line with 5 stops across the country.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure that ends badly.
Did you guys know that Virgin America won Best Airline in the U.S. was voted by Condé Nast readers?
Just like Marriott Rewards keeps winning all the Freddies?
Well, no, but this is more legit, I think.
It's definitely more legit, but that's not saying much. Let's start with that. I did know that. They've won that several years in a row.
Well, then it's not this just in. It's not it. It's out.
So, it begs the question, United's going to be pushing a lot of traffic through San Francisco and Denver now. Do you think fares are going to drop on United, or Seth, you said earlier that they're going to kind of play this to try to capture some of what Virgin, to make it so that Virgin can't capture it. So do you think that, a month, 2 months out, the fares on United will be pretty cheap between those two, or even if you're connecting via those two?
I expect that there's going to be some spectacular deals for people who live in Denver.
You think so?
I do. There's too much capacity coming into the market for what it should, naturally handle. I don't know how long it'll last and how broad it'll be, but I would expect that things will be nice for that population for some time.
Yeah. The next line that I want to talk about is Helsinki JFK on Finnair. Seth, you were saying that you had heard A350. They'd kind of been touting the A350, and now there's a press release that they don't have the plane, right, to do that.
Yeah, I'm mostly bitter about that one. It's an interesting one. They never officially put that route on the A350 schedule. Finnair is the third operator of the A350, the first in Europe, following Qatar Airways and Vietnam Airlines. So they finally got their first one and it's now flying to, I believe, Shanghai. But they were supposed to have 4 by the end of the year, and now they're only going to have 2. And one of the things they were teasing for a long time was that they were going to show up with that aircraft at JFK and actually beat Qatar Airways to being the first airline flying the 350 to the United States.
Hmm.
And they made I won't say a big deal out of it, but they talked about it a lot with media events, including an interview that I did with the CEO. And it turns out they knew at the time that they probably didn't have the aircraft to do it. So I'm a little bitter about that. But not only did they not have the aircraft to put the 350 on there, it turns out it seems that they're actually short on aircraft overall. The JFK Helsinki route right now is actually being operated by a wet-leased, shady-ass charter 777. It's not even a straight-up Finnair metal.
And they're doing that with is it a crew? I mean, is it a Finnair crew or is it a contract crew?
I would assume it actually may be a dry lease plane with Finnair crew. I would bet it's probably Finnair crew.
Okay, at least you have that going for you, but still, I bet it's a dump inside.
I mean,
So
having done a similar experience with Norwegian the one time I took them long haul, and dealing with the absolutely abysmal interior of stains that I don't want to really think about anymore, like ever, on the seats, it was a bad experience. To the point that, I give Finnair credit. They actually acknowledge that this is going to be a problem and are allowing people the opportunity to switch flights. Like, there's an alert on the website, apparently, that if this doesn't meet your needs and you're disappointed by it, please, let us know and we'll give you options. But it's interesting to me. They also had to obviously postpone putting the 350 on a bunch of other, 3 other routes. I think they were going to have maybe Beijing and Bangkok, maybe. I'd have to go back and check my notes. But there were some interesting challenges because they didn't have the planes. And
did they miss a delivery or something?
Well, yes is the short answer. The longer answer is it's unclear why the planes are being delayed. Is this Airbus screw up? Is this they couldn't get hardware? There's been a lot of problems with aircraft deliveries. We've talked about it here before with seats not being available from the vendors. I actually don't know which of those things is the problem here, but planes that the company expected to have this year are now going to be delivered next year. And the quote I got, which I'm certainly paraphrasing, was something to the effect of, this sort of thing happens with any new product rollout. Which, but not really. So
they have 2 A350s in their possession right now.
I don't know if the second one has been delivered yet.
So where are they operating the one?
Shanghai, right?
That's Shanghai.
Oh, interesting.
And it is interesting. I don't know. Most of it I'm just a little bitter, but also it's interesting to me to see that another airline is having delivery problems and trying to get this going. And I know it's early in the 350 product life. It's a year now, so I would have thought that manufacturing delivery was getting a little smoother, but we will see.
Hey, things
came out of the paint shop, so they're coming soon.
How many 350s have been delivered so far?
Not many. Fewer than 10, I think.
Yeah.
If you guys want to laugh,
exactly.
On Finnair's website, if you go to book JFK to Helsinki, it says so AY006 underneath the times it says operated by another airline, and then if you book like a code share that says JFK Heathrow, it says operated by American Airlines. So it doesn't even tell you.
It's like the Pegasus something. It's this bizarre. It's this. It's one of those sort of private operators that don't really work.
Yeah, it's another airline. They just tell you operated by another airline.
That's pretty good.
It's a grab bag. You never know who you're going to get.
Except this one's a little more firm. But did you guys know that Janet is hiring for pilots?
Janet Air, as in the people who fly to Reno or to Vegas with the secret
Room
plane?
Lake. Yeah.
How would you like to have that job?
Well, do they? How do you know they're hiring? Where did you see that?
It's on the interwebs right now. I just saw it on. Well, I should be paying attention to the podcast, but I'm researching additional topics for sharing. Yeah,
interesting.
Anyway, not at all useful to any of our conversations, other than last time I was in Vegas, I sat and watched the planes for a long, long time. But
so Emirates and Singapore are kind of shifting their capacity and fleet makeup to Europe. They're putting a lot of two-cabin birds on their European flights. I think Copenhagen on Emirates is going to two-cabin A380, right?
615 seats or something like that.
Yeah.
Best party lab in the sky.
The biggest party lav or the best or both?
I think it's probably both, but I got to be careful about puffery and such. They brought the plane is brand new, the two cabin 380, and so they brought it to the Dubai Air Show when I was there a couple weeks ago, straight from the factory basically. So 13-inch screens in economy, which is almost too big, but also they essentially just replaced the first class cabin upstairs with coach seats. So business is actually in between two coach mini cabins upstairs. And the forward lav on the right side where the shower is on the first class configuration is an economy lav on the two class configuration. And so they took out the shower, and that lav, it doesn't go quite as far, sort of all the way forward as I remember, but it is huge. Like, we had 3 guys standing in there and felt comfortable with the amount of space.
Is there still a sign that says the maximum occupancy too?
I did not see that sign.
Because that's the sign in first class.
Yeah.
So that's to me, that's 615 people. That's a lot of people on an A380. That is.
Pity the poor fool stuck in the last row upstairs, who's behind you, and all 614 are ahead of you at immigration.
Yeah.
Wait, so the bar's gone as well?
No, there was still a bar on board. Maybe there's not a mini cabin at the back. Maybe it's only at the front.
Oh, okay.
Wow. So that's one route. Is there any other routes they're going to put them on to Europe that the two cabin is going to make a debut that you know of for Emirates?
For some reason, I thought something in the UK, Edinburgh or Manchester, or something like that, but I'm not sure of that.
And then go ahead.
Wait, sorry. One side note: they are putting in new larger screens on the first class cabin as well. It goes up to like 32 inches or something ridiculous.
Yes, they did announce for future new deliveries.
On this 777s and the A380s.
Yeah, it's going to be a ridiculously large screen.
Be like
From 27 to 32 inches. Largest screens available on any aircraft, apparently.
Wow. And then Singapore is kind of downgrading some of their routes too. I think they're downgrading the Barcelona route. Fahad, you were saying Barcelona and then Sao Paulo, right? It's going to go to 2 class.
Right.
But you said the tag-on only? Like only one part?
No, the whole thing, along with Amsterdam was another one. I forget what else. There was a couple that were dropping.
So it's an interesting shift in Europe, right? I mean, that we're going down to 2 cabin, and especially, on the Emirates where people talk about, they're flooding the market with, this premium product. But like Seth pointed out to me earlier, well, they're flooding the market with cheap seats now. So it's an interesting move. I mean, does Europe now present more of the leisure traveler? Is first class travel just not that important anymore to Europe, or what?
I think one of the questions I would ask is that's the only way to take Singapore to Sao Paulo. So could some of that be contributed by the Brazilian economy crisis?
True.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Right. Copenhagen is suffering. I won't say suffering, but demand was always questionable. There's a lot of leisure travel. Right. SAS pulled out of a bunch of leisure markets like Bangkok, places like that, and Norwegian is coming and sort of kicking its ass in a lot of those spaces, heading service to Vegas, to San Juan, to some of the other Caribbean destinations, to Bangkok again. Like so between Norwegian and Emirates basically coming in with massive amounts of economy class service, they're sort of driving the costs down, but they can still fill up the plane.
Right, and so I looked up the information. Singapore, Amsterdam, Singapore, Auckland, Singapore, Milan, Barcelona, and Singapore, Barcelona, Sao Paulo. So it looks like all the flights to Barcelona have lost first.
Is that immediate, or was it like when did that?
To the summer of 2016.
And you think that it's because they're adding premium economy to some of those 777s?
I don't know. Maybe they're just selling portions of the plane to Delta. $10 million a piece.
just the first cabin for Delta One.
Well, that's all they can afford at $10 million a piece.
Rollo, you wanted to talk a little bit about London City, so we can talk about that line. Why don't you tell us?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm jet lagged. So I got to do the London City route out of JFK. It was on Tuesday night, and I gotta say, I was very impressed. Even with the check-in, it was like everybody was just so nice. Like, oh, you're on the London City flight. Oh, welcome to our London City flight. It was just like they make it like a point to tell you that it's like a special flight. When I went in the lounge, first lounge was so packed. So I got into the first lounge as a One World Emerald, but then they made the announcement that the dining was available. So I went over to the business side and I used the dining room, which I had never used before. It was really good. Everybody, even the person at the front desk was like, "Oh, welcome. You should eat now because on this flight, you want to get some sleep." So I ate the buffet, and then boarding was just so easy. Like there was nobody.
There's only 32 seats, right?
Yeah. So it was just like I walked up to the gate and it was just me. And I did the Heathrow to Doha flight, which is a A320, I think, compared to a 319. And that has 40 something seats. But this was only about half full, so there was really only 16 people. Everybody that was traveling by themselves had their own row. And whoever was traveling with somebody was together. But, the service was so fast. If you want to eat, they shut the lights off right away and you could get a good night's sleep. And the flight was actually long for, I guess, this time of the year.
Huh.
And they asked me if I wanted arrival service. They're like, oh, there's no arrival facilities at the airport at the city, but they will take you in a limousine to the Radisson Hotel. So I pre-booked that. They take you to the Radisson, and there's a spa there. It's called the East River Spa. And you get a private room to shower. And then once you're finished, you get a full breakfast at the buffet, or they'll give you a takeaway breakfast. And then from there, I had to transfer to Heathrow, ironically, which was fun. So, but they drove me from the hotel. They will take you to the Canary Wharf Underground station. So I got on that, and then I transferred to I didn't have to go on the light rail, the DLR. I went to the Jubilee line, which was good. But I was very impressed, and it's not the typical Club World seats. It's a flat seat. The only thing they don't have is TVs. They have this like iPad holder, and they'll give you an iPad which you put in the holder that comes out of the seat. So just like American with their new 767 retrofit. Yeah, but American doesn't have this holder for you. I know you have to put it on your table, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See.
They actually do have a shelf that comes down with a power in the seat.
Oh.
Is that one of the awesome ones where you can use the power either for your device or theirs, but not both?
No, they actually have two power outlets. They actually put one. They have a drop-down tray table in front of the seat, so you can put the tablet with the power outlet right there because they were too cheap to put screens in.
Yep.
So
I'm not sure the power was actually cheaper than the screen, for the record.
Yeah, it is. Having done enough research in the industry, yeah, it is.
Oh, so you enjoyed the flight, Rolo? The transfer to London Heathrow was necessary for you to get to where you were going?
Yeah, I wasn't going to. When I booked it, I didn't have the other trip planned. I just figured I would have a Thanksgiving trip to Europe. And since I could get the London City flight, I thought it was a good idea. But I was thinking, as I'm transferring, that even if I'm going, I know everybody raves about London City, even if I'm going to London, unless you have to be in that part of town, it's not that great of a, it's not a benefit. Like, people hate Heathrow, but
London airports, though, like, each of them is more convenient to one part of whatever transit line you want to be on.
I guess, yeah, but I feel like Heathrow, for all the complaints and everything, like, if you're really in a hurry to get to town, you can get on Heathrow Express, and it takes, 15 minutes.
Well, it depends on where in town. You get dropped off at Piccadilly, which is still far from a lot of different things.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I don't know, I guess, because if you transfer, I got lucky because they drove me to the Jubilee line. But if you land in City, you have to walk to the DLR, which may or may not be running, and then you have to transfer at some station, and you have to make sure that the sign says good service.
Right, but think about how long it takes you to get off the plane through customs at Heathrow, even before you get to the Tube or the Express.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of torn. Like, it's not. Yeah,
Especially
for the
peak
complaints
arrival
about
time in the
Heathrow.
morning.
Yeah.
But if you're going to
But
like, but if you're going to Canary Wharf or something like that, like London City's like
No brainer.
3 miles away. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's perfect for that. That's what I was saying.
Right. Those flights are completely catered to the bankers, which are all in Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
Mr. Banks?
Yes, Mr. Banks. But, I mean, that's why those flights are there, is to cater to that finance crowd. And
I saw no bankers on my flight, just for the record. No bankers.
You could tell because none of them had their abacus out during the flight.
No, I just could tell. I could tell because I saw a couple guys that were at the hotel. I rode the limousine with one guy.
Yeah.
There was a couple that was just flying there. I mean, there really may have been one or two.
Yeah. You were also going on a holiday week, so I'm only mostly busting your balls. But
Was it full of bloggers?
how did they mix your gin and tonic?
How did they mix it?
Yeah, sorry.
Shaken, not stirred.
You guys haven't read that trip report yet.
I have not. Well, you got to tell us what it is now.
1 mile at a time. Apparently, one of the biggest affronts from BA service he had in premium economy is that his gin and tonic was served as a bottle of gin, a thing of gin and a thing of tonic for him to mix himself.
They do that from time. I got that actually too.
See, so you did actually have an answer. Aren't you glad?
I just now that you think about it, but I feel like it's been served both ways.
And
Like I can't.
what is your feeling on?
It depends because I would sometimes prefer to mix my own to see how strong I want to make it. Sometimes they make it like when they just serve it to me, I feel like I down it too quickly because maybe it does not have as much gin as it should. So I don't know.
It has more gin than it should.
Yes,
Sorry.
that depends. It depends on the yes. It's a good question though. I think I don't mind mixing my own. I mean, I'm a certified mixologist, so I could. That's
On
a true
airplanes,
statement.
we've got pictures to prove it.
Yes.
So.
Hey, Steven, how's our show notes looking?
Oh, it's completely just all over the map. I think the topic that I want to talk about for the destinations is the post that you wrote, Seth, titled "But Aren't You Scared?" And maybe you should just kind of introduce it. I think it's a good topic for all of us to talk about, but maybe you should just introduce it and kind of the question that was raised to you.
Sure. And so this actually came up in April. I've been working on this post for a long time and sort of off and on. But one of the things that I was presenting at FTU in April down in Dallas, and after one of their sessions, a guy came up to me almost sheepishly, sort of, seemed a little awkward for me. He says, "You travel a lot." I said, "Sure." And he says, you go all these crazy places. I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Aren't you scared?" And it was interesting for me because I didn't have an answer right away. I sort of hemmed and hawed on it, and it was, I think I sort of asked him to clarify, and we talked about it for a good 15 minutes in the end, but he was legitimately concerned that going somewhere where he was unfamiliar, whether it was a language issue or just a culture issue or just, he hadn't been there before, he was worried he wouldn't be able to eat, he wouldn't be able to find a decent hotel, he wouldn't understand the transit, and then he wouldn't have a good time. And so, eating and whatnot, I guess, is important, and it's all important at some level, but it was an interesting way of phrasing the situation, and it definitely caused me to think a bit. And my answer in the end is sure, of course I'm scared, but and I get a little freaked out even on the routine trips sometimes, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It just means that in some ways it's worth savoring or being even more intrigued by or excited by. So that was sort of the very short version of the conclusion I came to when thinking about this. And when we talked about it, I hope he's traveling more. I don't know that I actually know who it was to follow up with him. But it is an interesting set of challenges to decide I'm going to go somewhere new, I'm going to do something different. And I guess at this point, sort of, I've been doing it for so long that it feels natural to me to do it that way. But for a lot of people, that's not the case.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I think if anyone says they're not like scared or they have a little bit of adrenaline rushing through them when they go somewhere new, I think they're lying. I think I don't know. It's kind of brash thing to say, but I think it's the truth. I think that no matter where you go, when it's new and it's somewhere you haven't been before and it's somewhere you probably don't speak the language or know your way around very well, there's always that sense of nervousness, I think. And so, like Istanbul, my first trip to Istanbul was like this sensory overload of, I'm nervous, I'm riding this tram into the city, I've heard that, this is where people get, they pickpocket it all the time. And so I'm nervous. Like I step off the plane and I'm nervous. And so I don't think that's uncommon, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing either. I think it's good to be nervous sometimes, right? You need to be aware of your surroundings. But I don't think it should impede you from traveling either. I think it's a good thing. I don't know. What do you think, Paz?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and there's definitely those places. But I mean, the age-old thing is just conquer your fears. Anything that's unfamiliar will be scary to some extent, but the only way you're going to conquer is by just doing it.
Yeah. Is there anywhere?
I'll put a swoosh on Paz's bag.
So I guess
just do it.
Hey, we're not getting paid by them, Seth. Let's not give them, free advertising.
No free advertising.
Is there anywhere?
Or we should just advertise all the companies: Under Armour, Adidas, Reebok, Puma.
But none of them have a cool slogan like "Just Do It."
New Balance.
New
work into it.
I'm on Cake on the side, so me and Smizik, we have a relationship.
Is there anywhere you wouldn't go? I mean, is there somewhere that, like today, if you looked at a map, would you say, I'm not going to go there?
Kwajalein?
Syria?
I was going to say Syria. I would do the hopper again. I don't know that and if we planned it, I think that, and there was a way to actually do something in Kwajalein, I think it would be fun. I think the biggest problem we had there that it was completely unexpected and like.
We were in prison.
Yeah, well, that too.
No, I would do the hopper again, but like Syria, Iraq, Iran, probably not places on top of my list anytime soon.
Of those, I would only avoid Syria. Maybe the parts of Iraq where there's similar challenges, but and maybe that's stupid of me, but I don't see quite the same level of threat in Iraq.
So I might have a problem.
Iran, certainly back. Nothing in Iran.
Well, my problem is I might not be able to get back.
Fair point.
But okay, besides war zones, though, is there anywhere that you don't want to go, that you're kind of like, that place terrifies me?
Chile. All of Chile.
I don't think there's anywhere I don't want to go because it terrifies me. There's places I'm not particularly inclined to like put at the top of a list just because I'm not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you said, hey, $400 round trip ticket, you want to go? There's very few places I would say no to.
For me, it's some of the Central African countries, I think, scare me a little bit. Just one, the language barrier. Two, there's some uncertainty of stability, and three, just it would be such a new experience to me just because I've never been to Africa. Like mm-hmm. that would be it'd be different. It'd be so different that it would make me really nervous. So I don't know if I would want to go to all of them, but there are certain African nations in West Africa, Central Africa that I probably would avoid. But I would love to go. There's certain places in Africa I would love to go. I'd love to go to Namibia and South Africa, and there was another one that I was just reading about that looked really, really cool.
Ease yourself into the experience and get a feel for it before you go, off the reservation.
Conveniently, United will be upping its frequency to Lagos next summer to 7 daily.
That's right.
I'll just go ahead and say Nigeria is one of the few places I'm not interested in. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. That's probably one that would take a little more convincing for me to think that's a good idea to go.
Yeah.
But you thought Ghana was a good idea?
I love Ghana.
But what was the one that wasn't a good idea? Togo?
Oh, Togo. Right, Rob. I got my money back. Whatever. Worked out in the
end. I remember him saying Port of Spain was someplace he'd never go again.
Port of Spain.
Yeah, it's true.
But I went. I wasn't scared to do it. It's just I don't want to waste my time going back somewhere that I didn't see much value in experience.
So it's like Detroit.
Yeah.
So
that's where all the hipsters are now. So you got to be careful.
So we talked about Quito before, but like Ecuador is somewhere that I've been, and I was nervous going into it just because it's a different experience. And I don't know if
Very
it's
bad
somewhere.
reputation.
It has a very bad reputation, and you see some of that stuff when you walk down the street, the scammers and things like that. And I don't know if I would go back. It was a beautiful country on the countryside, but I don't know if I would go back to Quito, because it didn't beat the nervousness. Like, I didn't leave there going, oh, it wasn't as bad as people said. So
I would agree with you specifically about Quito.
Yeah, exactly.
But as a country in general, I really, actually, we had a great time out in the Cloud Forest. There's a market town that I'm blanking on the name of now, that we were disappointed in. Just everything seemed to be made in China instead of local anymore. But it was beautiful countryside.
Yep. I just think it's an interesting...
Yeah, so I don't want to go back to the Galapagos.
Yeah, if you want to go back to the Galapagos, that's the jumping off point. I just think it's an interesting topic. Rollo, is there anywhere that you're kind of, nervous about? Do you get nervous still traveling? I mean, you travel a lot too. You kind of randomly just jump around. Is there anywhere that, you're overwhelmed or nervous about when you leave?
Chile.
No. No, I feel like I really don't have, I'm never, even if I'm going somewhere where I've never been or there's a completely different language, I don't really feel any nervousness or anything like that. I just, but most of the time when I'm going to a place, it's going to be a place like that I feel it's not going to be where my life is in danger. So, the only time I really felt, I wasn't scared. I was just like, wow, this is crazy. It was the first time I went to Thailand. And I went from Buenos Aires to Paris to Bangkok. And I remember landing and it was raining and I was so tired and the traffic was just horrendous. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I never felt, nervous or scared. And then China, when I went to Beijing, I really wasn't thrilled with Beijing, and the city just was too big and the traffic was bad. And I don't know that I would necessarily want to go back to Beijing, but I just don't feel I guess I've been to so many places in different languages that it's just like, I'm not, I guess it's more like a little like adrenaline, like, oh, I'm going to go see a new place, but never like, oh, I'm a little scared to go there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Think
maybe
the fact that you're bilingual to start helps or hurts in that sense?
I think it helps a lot because in so many places that I've been to, English or Spanish has been spoken, by somebody. It's just so random that people. I remember when I went to Tahiti by myself and I needed to rent a car to go surfing, and I just randomly, and I don't really speak French. I randomly ran into some guy from Argentina, and he directed me in Spanish, where to go. After some other guy who spoke only French, but I mean I could partly understand what he was saying, drew a little map. And he described what I think was an Exxon station, and he said you pass there and then you turn right. So, I do feel that being bilingual helps a lot. But then when you get to Japan or China or Russia, then it definitely doesn't.
No matter what, yeah. Although I would say, we say that it's funny in Ukraine. One of my favorite stories about language is Linnea and I trying to negotiate something in English, and Linnea's 10 words or a few more than that of Ukraine and Russian. And the woman we were talking to, mumbling under her breath, "Oh, these idiots! Why do I only speak French?" And she said it in. I can't remember if she said it in English or French, but we understood it. And we're "Oh, you speak French? So do we." And what had taken us 20 minutes of painstaking trying to communicate and understand was done in 30 seconds. So,
wow.
Even in, you never know where random language skills will help. But
I also want to add that I think that some people. There's people that are on the other extreme where they won't go anywhere near certain regions. I remember somebody on Fly Talk saying that they couldn't convince their significant other to go to Dubai because it was the Middle East, and where it's so extreme, and their reason was because it's so close to a war zone. So I don't know. I feel like there's just a big difference in somebody like me who just will go.
That may require looking at a map a little better.
Well, I'm not making this up.
No, I don't doubt. Look, I'm sure you're not. I've heard similar interesting commentaries. It's just not one that I would go with.
I think it's one of those things you have to jump out there and just kind of do it. And after you do it a couple times, I think you kind of get a little bit of a resiliency to yourself that you're like, okay, I can do this. The next time's not as hard. each time you do it a little more. I think there's still that nervousness of travel. I still get like nervous when I travel. I mean, when I travel somewhere new or somewhere I've been before, even that's far away, that I have to realize I'm 6,000 miles from home. And it's like that makes me a little nervous. But I think every time I do it, I'm a little more comfortable.
Yeah, but it's sort of excited nervous for me as opposed to
exactly
panic nervous.
Yeah, it's not like I'm freaking out. It's I'm jittery. I probably don't sleep great the night before. Just because I'm excited and nervous at the same time. So I would just tell people to just do it. That sounds terrible. But to just give yourself a chance to try it and force yourself to, and you'll be surprised that it's not as overwhelming as you think. I know when we went to Seoul, Seth, I think that was a little bit of a shock at first. Getting on the train and everything's in Korean, but it was surprisingly simple. Like, everything's numbered and people are friendly. And I mean, we sat at that soup shop in that little market, and the lady was like excited that 3 Americans were sitting down to have dinner at her stall, and we couldn't communicate, but she was happy to serve us. So
yeah, I mean, that was actually, I will say, you looked shell shocked. So take that. Part of that is because you didn't get your breakfast choice. I know on the plane.
Yeah, that was that
for that. But who was sitting with us the whole time? But no, I think that you're right. That sort of finding that random little streets, side street stalls and whatnot, and picking one and sitting down and doing the whole meal where we were clearly the gringos. That guy sitting, I guess, to the right of all of us who tried to get us to drink whatever that milky stuff was, which he was being super nice. I guess at some point one of us should have taken that fall and done it to be polite in return. But, just that whole experience. Like, I don't want to know what, it would have been like to have not done that.
Yeah, exactly. And it eased my mind a little bit. It's like, this is comfortable. I'm 5,000 miles away from home, but people are still friendly, and it's not.
And I think that's the part of it. People are friendly, right? People want to help other people as a general rule. I feel like there's plenty of assholes out there, but as a general rule, there's enough nice people around that you're usually going to be okay. Like, it's even in the worst of scenarios, you're probably going to be fine. There's very few ways that you're going to end up dead from any of this, or severely injured, or starving, or homeless.
Yep, exactly.
So, give it a
go. Get out there and travel. Do we want to talk about AA real quick and the changes and make that kind of the wrap-up topic of the night?
Yeah.
Cool. So American Airlines announced their changes for 2016 to the program to AAdvantage. What do you guys think? I mean, they're changing things to revenue models, right? So the earnings for redeemable miles is a revenue model now. Are you
in the middle of next year? And that's which is strange.
Yeah, they don't have. It's one of those things. They clearly don't have the tech quite ready to go.
So when does it start then, Foz?
I think June.
Okay, so
definitely list a date. I just heard mid-year, but
yeah, I thought they were. I know they said mid-year. I thought they hinted June, July, but
yeah.
So now the mileage earnings for redeemable, reward miles is going to be it's about the same as United and Delta have done, right? I think the levels are like 5, 7, 8, and 11 or something like that. Multipliers of your fare, and then but the elites qualifying stays the same, and there's no as of yet no monetary minimum that you have to meet. Correct?
Well, and actually, elite qualifying arguably gets easier. Premium
because of the miles, right? Yeah.
So instead of like 1.25 and 1.5, it goes up to 2x and 3x for business and first class cabins. And they're dropping the EQPs, the elite qualifying points thing, where higher fares did well and lower fares did poorly. And so you either qualify on segments or just on EQMs. So especially without the revenue factor, there's a lot of people saying elite status is going to be easier to come by.
Mm-hmm.
And questioning whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But they're also doing some interesting things, like you only get 4 system-wides now. As a
down from 6 or 8?
8.
But, and this is a fun one when it came up, I love that they reply to everything on Twitter, because sometimes the context is lost. It's like, wow, they're making it even harder to get what you used to get. And the response I got was, we still make it possible for you to earn those extra 4 SWUs if you fly more, Seth. I was like, right. If I do twice as much flying as I used to do, I get the same benefit. Got it. So, putting aside the lack of context in there, it was an interesting sort of view. And so that's honestly, to me, that is probably the most surprising of all the changes and the most unfortunate. Everything else, I was expecting the revenue-based. That's not a surprise at all. I think anyone who says it's a surprise is living under a rock.
And the other thing that's changed was a lot of the redemption rates went up.
Yes.
Yep.
And earning rates on partners, too, they went down. Like, you get nothing on very low fare, like BA low fares and stuff like that. They earn 0, I think.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if they earn 0 or just like the 25% or very low numbers. There's definitely a shift, especially with the joint venture stuff, that makes it look a lot like the earning rates of if you were flying it on an AA code, right? Because American does its earnings based on both marketing and operating carriers. So as long as it's One World operated, you earn by marketing carrier, and a lot of the fares are identical in the joint venture market. So they wouldn't want someone buying the BA-coded AA flight and then earning by distance instead of by revenue and trying to game the system that way. So I think a lot of the changes basically tried to close that sort of loophole on the earnings side.
Yeah.
But I think it's not 0, but you get like 25% of elite miles.
Right, on the super cheap.
Like on the, like Euro Traveler on BA, like deep discount ones.
Right, so those are the same ones that you would have earned, it would have been a $500 or an $800 round trip fare, where you would have earned, say, 4,000 points round trip. The 25%, maybe a little lower than that, but it's not that far off, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's good for you, but I think that's why they did it.
So Foz and Rolo, since you guys are pretty.
Well, this just in, I think Foz may or may not have left the building.
Well, so Rolo, we'll ask you, does this affect your travel on American, since you're a big American traveler, right?
Well, yes, but that's the problem is I've already pretty much qualified. I was kind of in between. At this point, I guess I would just finish my qualification, get the 8 SWUs for next year, but after that, I'm really going to have to consider, what's the best of the worst,
Yeah.
That's what everything seems to be shifting to that. Is it like really just why get a status at all? Just if you want, front of the plane, just buy it and save yourself the headaches.
Wait for a fare sale on a business class ticket and just
or especially if you're not traveling for work, is it even worth your time to get miles or do it where, to earn elite status when, because if you're not going to get upgrades, you're not going to, if I only have four system wides to go to Buenos Aires, that's 2 trips when it used to be 4 trips.
Yep.
My answer to your question, is it worth it if you're a leisure traveler, would probably be no.
I just wonder, long term, does this come back to bite the carriers in the ass at some point? Not financially, but just from you irritate enough people, no one's loyal anymore.
But do they care if you're loyal, I guess? This is kind of what they're saying. Do they really even care? Like, they figure the people that are going to be flying, there's some people that are still just fly it. They're loyal only because they're in that market in some cases.
Yeah.
They just happen to fly. Especially a lot of executive travelers that, don't fly private. Like, they fly because it's a convenient flight. So they fly up front so they don't even care. They have, from the volume of flying, they're elite, but they never even use their miles or use any of the benefits. I remember sitting next to people on planes where the guy's like, I don't even know how to use my miles, and he was flying paid business all the time.
Yeah.
So to them, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I had a work colleague from my old job who was super excited. She finally figured out how to redeem all her points for a vacation to Maui.
Oh, man.
I haven't even, I need to follow up with her and see how well she did, but the answer's great. She finally used them. Right? People, we live in this sort of rarefied world where people are super flexible and super crazy and creative about the stuff. Most people don't give a shit. They just want it to work.
But here's the thing, though. Okay, so you're saying we live in rarefied air here. If it's so rare, then why would the airlines even give a crap? You know what I mean?
Well, I think they just give a crap only to a small extent, where they have to be competitive and try to get the loyalty aspect. But if you see how they all do the same thing, they follow each other. So it's none of them are going to say, "Look, we care enough to keep the program different from the rest of them."
I also, Stephen, feel like you might be looking at it from the wrong direction, right? If you're looking at it from, why are they doing this to screw us when we're just such a small group? And the other question to ask is, if you look at the rest of the population, are they attracting a bigger group because they make the change?
Well, and I would answer no, probably, right?
Hard to say.
I mean, if you're rewarding people based on spend, are you really attracting more people?
I think you're attracting potentially better people for the business travelers who have a choice, who realize that you're right. We have our one friend who spends a lot of time in paid long-haul business class, and he hits that 75,000 cap a lot.
Yep.
So there are certain people who really do benefit from those sorts of things, and some of them actually, he's less so, but some of them are discretionary and based on where they live and being able to have multiple choices. And then the other aspect of it is, if you do that and you can open up better partner earning options and make it easier to enable redemptions, you might attract people. I mean,
true.
For all the hate Sky Pesos get, Delta's doing some interesting things with domestic awards where they're dropping the price down.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
American added a 7,500 point option as part of their award chart change too for super short flights, but there's a couple hundred routes that look like that, and they're often very expensive routes if you're just flying the nonstop.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they've alienated everybody. It's not clear that it's a perfect solution, but it takes away a lot of the loopholes, so it makes things easier for them to run, and it doesn't actually piss off everybody, just some people.
Yeah, so, that's a good point. It's a good point.
It's not the end of the world. It's the end of our life in this world, so to speak, the way we've been living in the world. But it's not the end of the world, especially if they keep making mistakes and having crazy sales in business class.
If they keep having cheap sales, I'm fine with that. $2,800 for my wife and I to go to Europe and business is not bad.
Yeah, did you get in on that?
So, I did.
Nice.
So I think we wrap it up with the Rolo rant. Rolo?
I actually have two quick rants. The first rant is sponsored by Hotel Hustle, where you can get all your hotel information. So the first rant is I was walking through the streets of Florence, Italy, Firenze for the Italians, and I was right by the St. Regis, a Marriott hotel, and I went in to have a drink at the bar. I wanted to, get a Negroni or some nice drink. So I walk into the door, the revolving door, and there's just a couple of the typical guys at the door, the doormen, butlers, whatever they are. And I'm trying to find the bar. And when I found the bar, one of the men from the door approached me and said, "Oh, sir, are you a guest here?" And I said, "No." He's like, "Oh, no, it's for hotel guests only." I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, it's for hotel guests only. The hotel is closed." I said, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just closed." So he wouldn't tell me why. And he's like, "If you'd like, there's a Westin across the street." I was like, "Okay." So I just laughed. I mean, I didn't really fight with them, but I was kind of ticked off that they don't have a sign that says hotel guest only, which would be ridiculous unless there's some sort of private, a VIP from a government or something like that. But there was no special security, nothing like that. It was just a normal, everything looked fine. So I was just a little pissed off. And I will never be staying at St. Regis in Florence. And I was thinking about writing to Starwood because they were just rude. Like they thought I don't know. I mean, I was dressed nicely. I didn't look like I was a person who was going to cause trouble, I guess. No, I was bundled up. I mean, I had a coat, but I really don't know. I was a little pissed off. And I just really wanted to sit down and rest and have a drink. And I was going to spend money and probably would have stayed at that hotel, on my next trip, but now I'll never stay there. So I went across the street and probably had a better drink at the Westin.
Did they say why the hotel was closed? Did you ever learn why it was closed?
No, they didn't tell me, and I didn't bother to find out or call or anything like that. I should have actually went to the front desk, but I just felt like this doorman guy was just like being rude, and I didn't want to cause trouble. So I think if I was by myself, I probably would have made a big deal about it. Like I said, I would have asked for get me the general manager of the hotel, and then pulled out my lifetime SPG card and said, "Oh, okay, this is how you treat your loyal members." And then I would have made a rant, yell to them about Marriott and how Marriott has changed, even though that's a ridiculous thing to say because it's only been like a week. But it would have been close to me being in an Italian jail.
Oh, so what's the second rant?
The second rant it's not really, it's sort of a rant, but it's not. I was a little annoyed, and it really doesn't turn out that it was just me. Like the service level on Emirates on my flight yesterday was just very poor. And this was in business class, and even in the bar. So the rules, and I know this from talking to them who work the bar, and I know a lot of people that work for Emirates. There has to be somebody at the bar at all times. And they kind of weren't doing that. And I just didn't care, but whatever. There was a passenger next, like standing at the bar, and he was waiting for the girl to come back, and she just wouldn't come back. So he went and served himself, opened the refrigerator, and took a beer out. So she comes out. She came out and said, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to do that." And he just went off on her. Like, "You're not offering the level of service that I need," like just screaming and yelling. And I was like, wow. Yeah, like he's like, "You want to provide the higher level of service. This is not what I paid for." And the poor girl was like a little scared. But a part of me said like, well, you know what? She wasn't really doing her job. And I stood there for a good 5 minutes before she even asked me what I wanted. And then when I asked for a drink and then a separate glass of like sparkling water, she gave me this look like, why are you ordering two things?
Better than my Virgin Atlantic flight many years ago where they didn't staff the bar, so I did.
Yeah, well, see, it's a common thing. Self-service.
No, I was serving other people.
Oh, well, self and others.
I actually forgot about that. Until recently was talking about times someone was complaining that some person on United was serving drink that wasn't in proper uniform. I'd forgotten about that story.
And so, a side note to my rant, apparently last week, on Thanksgiving, I think there was an article that this man from Birmingham or something he's going to be jailed for 11 months, ordered by a British court because he was very rowdy on a Dubai to Birmingham flight. He threatened to punch the air hostess in the face, says the article. And he said that if they're on the ground, he would have punched her. So 11 months in jail, according to the Daily Mail.
Wow.
And he was mixing wine and alcohol, they say. So that was his. I don't know if he was putting like vodka in his wine or he was getting one wine and one, gin and tonic self-served.
I got no problem with them giving him 11 months if he's getting violent.
Yeah, if you're getting violent, yep, exactly. Oh, well, I think that's the show, guys. We went a little long today, but it was good to have everybody back. So, let's go around the table, tell everybody where they can find you. Seth?
I am on Seth?
Yeah, we're going to go Seth first. We're going to go Seth first this time.
I'm Seth, also known as the Wandering Airman. I'm WANDR.ME or at WANDRME on Twitter and Instagram.
I am Rolo. I'm at Mundo Surfer on Twitter.
I'm Steven Seagraves. You can find me on Twitter at SSeagraves. I blog occasionally at badice.com. Foz, you can find on Twitter at FozM. You can follow Dots, Lines, and Destinations on Twitter at DotsLines, or leave us a comment on the show, moredotsmorelines.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.